Thank you so much for joining me today. How are you?
Doing well, Sonia. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Let's go ahead and dive right in. Tell me about your business, Caller Smart.
College Smart helps our users outsmart, avoid unwanted and unknown calls and texts. So if you use Waze in the States for directions, it's a similar model to Waze except for the phone book. Our
Got
users
it.
keep the phone book up to date for everybody.
Super cool. All right. Well, what would you say is a specific problem that you saw for the people you serve? You kind of said it just a little bit, and we all have experienced it, but go ahead. I want to hear how you
Yeah,
describe it.
yeah. I mean, you have the problem of you get a scam call or you're dating someone and you don't know much about them. There's kind of two big use cases. You got one use case, which is you get in particular, these people target immigrants or they target elderly people, where they call them up and they say, um, you know what, you owe back taxes. You need to send a wire to this place right now, and if you don't, we're going to send the ICE or whatever to come arrest you. Um, and people who are immigrants to the states who don't know how the IRS works will tend to fall for this scam. So that's one we
Wow.
see a lot of.
Okay.
We help people not fall for that, basically put an end to it. And then also, if you're dating, particularly with online dating, and you only know the first name of the person, you being an expat or living in BA, it's a little bit different. You're probably not our use case, but like if you're in the States and you're dating and you give out your number on Tinder and you want to know more about the person, or they tell you that their name is Rob, and then you find out actually their name's Steven or whatever, that we can tell you quite a bit more about the person based on the phone number.
That's fascinating. That's fascinating.
Yeah.
So, what made you decide that you were going to be the one to solve these problems? Like, these are two drastically sort of different problems that have the same solution,
Yeah.
but what made you decide that you were going to be the one to do this?
Um, I'm not the one. Let's put it that way. So like
Okay.
it's part of a team.
Okay.
I'm the founder of the company, but we have a team, so it's not just me. But I think that the reason that like I felt like we were capable of solving this, or the two drastically different problems that I described and why there's this one solution is
Hmm.
that you have this. I spent a couple years in Silicon Valley. I'm a big believer. If you ask me, like one of the things that would be on my tombstone would be to make war with a multitude of counsel. And what that basically means is that, like, wherever you have experience or you have expertise already, you tend to want to stay in those areas.
Hmm.
Um, so I had spent a couple years in tech. I'd also spent a couple years in this industry of people search genealogy, and saw a need and an opportunity for this business. So, and had the relationships already. So I think that because I get asked this question a lot, and I would say that, like, somebody who they say that they want to be in tech, or that say they want to they want to be an artist, whatnot, and they find out like that they're working at a restaurant. There is, like, unless you want to own a restaurant, like a lot of times is that, like, you need to get into the general industry
Yeah.
that you want to be in longer term, right? Like even if it's entry level, it's just, yeah, you've seen this as well.
Is that how you got started in tech? Like, you just surrounded yourself in the tech environment and saw different opportunities pop up in that area?
Um, no, I had a recycling business when I was in college. My mom and I started a recycling company. I grew it. I studied abroad in Argentina for a year, and then when I came back from Argentina, sold the company.
I knew I
Made good
liked
money.
you. Time in Argentina, I knew that I liked you. Sorry.
Uh, no, 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 it's okay. I mean, yeah, I sold the company, and then I proceeded to do a couple foolish things with the money, and wound up going bankrupt at the age of, like, went from having a lot of money to being effectively bankrupt at 25,
Mhm.
and reached out to friends and basically landed a job
Okay.
in the valley as a result of a couple friends. So, um, and it was basically it was driven by my attitude of, like, I'm willing to learn.
Got it. Well, that willingness to learn, I think being able to, it helps you bounce back from, devastating losses, like it sounds like what you have. What was the biggest thing that you feel like you learned from that experience of having a lot of money to not having any money to, you've run this company and
Getting
you're,
back.
yeah,
Is that you learn to take a punch, right? Like, yeah, I mean, you learn that, I mean, everything works out as you would expect, number one, but number two is that, I think, I think that it was good for me to get my teeth kicked in, and it's been several times. Like my dad has often said to me that I like to fail big. That's not necessarily a good trait, but um, you can get back up. I think people in general are more resilient than they give themselves credit for.
That's true. I can attest to that. It's kind of like that. I've heard people reference this quote from Rocky Balboa, that movie, and he's like, basically, it's not how hard you can hit, it's how hard you can get hit and keep going. So it sounds like
Yeah.
you've had those experiences, but they've only served to make you stronger as you've gone along. So that's good.
I mean, not in the moment, but yeah, like
Right.
that's a lot of what Nietzsche would talk about. That's a lot about what Nietzsche would talk about, right? As well, right? Like that which does not kill me makes me stronger.
For sure, for sure. Well, let's transition a little bit to your experiences as an entrepreneur. So
Sure.
tell me about, we talked a little bit about it, but tell me if what was the biggest barrier in mindset that you experienced that limited your success in some way, and how did you overcome it?
The biggest barrier for me was a belief in that I had to not do everything myself, but that I needed to understand and know how it was done. And it was a practice of letting go and learning to trust other people.
Okay.
Yeah, which sounds very cliche, but is also, as somebody who is self-diagnosed as being type A, it's hard for me to let go of things sometimes.
I Even people who don't identify with being type A, I think most of us have a hard time letting go, self included, right? So
Yeah.
was there a specific point or some specific event that made you realize that, like, I can't have my hands in everything. I've got to let other people do what they do best.
I mean, it's an ongoing process, but I mean, I've invested in several different businesses, and I can't. What constantly comes back is that, like, if I'm not like involved on a day-to-day basis, is that things pile up without me, and that's not the position that I want to be in, and that's something that you talk about in your in some of your books and from what I read on your website. So the act or the practice of actually delegating things back down, and for me, being clear about what the goals are when I delegate it back out means that. Means that treating people like an adult, like you have a responsibility. Here's the goal, like, rock and roll, go do it, right?
What was the
And
thing
then
that
measuring against it.
What was the thing that surprised you the most once you started doing that?
Most people relished that kind of environment if they were already sort of independent and a self-starter, right?
Okay.
If they didn't have that attitude initially, that was that sort of environment, or that sort of, here's the goals, you're capable, do what you need to get it figured out, proved to be they needed a lot more hand-holding, and then it wasn't a good working environment for either one of us.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Well, let's talk a little bit more about your habits. And I'm super curious to know more about this because I'm sure you've learned a lesson or two about habits from your first experience with that first business, the recycling business, to what you're doing now. Are there any habits or suite of habits that you have that help you keep everything together, that help you continue to hold on to operate at a higher level and allow you to run your businesses in a sustainable way and your life? Because
Yeah.
there's a way to keep it all in balance, right?
Yeah. I'm a huge, first and foremost, I have a lot of habits. I have, my girlfriend tells her, it's like, I have too many if you ask her sometimes, like, yeah, I mean, there's a mentor of mine, a guy named Jim Rohn, who he has a quote that is, motivation is what gets you started. Habit is what keeps you going. And so, to answer your question, I mean, I spend a quarter of the year in the States, a quarter of the year in Europe, and then half of the year in Bali in Indonesia. And that sort of like changing of locations necessitates quite a bit of habits.
Okay.
And the habits are things like at night. I mean, I journal every night. I've had a consistent journaling practice for probably 4 years now. I I have like in the mornings I sleep with my phone in airplane mode, and then in the mornings I dance and have a morning routine that I go through. Yeah, like I know you like to dance. I don't do tango dancing, but I'm doing like, if you've ever walked in New York, or you've seen the old Chinese ladies who are out doing the sort of
Yes.
exercises, I tend to
Yes.
look like that in the morning.
That's awesome, though.
But the reason I say it is because I do it before the phone goes on, right? Like
Okay.
it's a quiet time, and I really like I protect with habits. I can go into specific ones if you want me to, but like very much the beginning and the end of the day, because I think that those two things are they determine how you start the day, and then also like how you close the day actually rolls over into your next day.
What, was it
And I have
tempting
all
for
kinds
you?
of, I mean, like, yeah, I mean, you want weird
Tempting?
habits? I got
Well,
all kinds
no,
of
not
weird habits.
necessarily. I'm just curious. I'm curious about because I hear a lot of people talk about their morning routine and the things that they do before they start work. Was it difficult for you to wait to turn that phone back, like to get it off of airplane mode and to
Take it off
check
the
in
airplane
with
mode.
see what's going on? Like, did that take you a while to ease into that process?
That one wasn't that. That one did not, but that was mainly because I found it to be. I think that your attention is probably your one of your most valuable assets, and that I
Mm-hmm.
felt like when I look at the phone, um, in the process of like starting the day, it is other people who, whether you get iMessages, WhatsApp messages, all kinds of stuff that they're not necessarily in order of a priority for you. And so
Mm-hmm.
for me, I very much was like, I need to have an hour, let's call it, it's not necessarily a set hour, but I need to have some time before I'm ready to engage with the day. And and when I started to do that, I just noticed that like I had a lot more um, patience and balance as the day went on, because I found that I wasn't being thrown for a loop as soon as I started the day. Right?
No, I hear you. I hear you. That's good.
Something you struggle with?
Um, I'm getting better at it, right? So I've got my morning routine, but sometimes I waste time starting my morning routine by engaging to see, oh, what happened in the world before, between the time that I went to sleep and the time that I wake up. So I'm working on it. I'm getting better, and I'm much more productive whenever I do just kind of get up and get my routine going. And surprisingly, nothing, the world does not end and nothing falls apart because
Yeah.
I don't engage. So I think that's just the biggest thing.
Yeah.
It's part of my letting go of my control. It's part of me dealing with my ongoing control issues. I guess you'd say.
It's hard to do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No, just living in those three places, Europe, Bali, and the U.S. Those three
Yeah.
places. Do you feel like that makes you a better entrepreneur in any way?
I don't know if it makes me a better entrepreneur. It makes me a more balanced one. So, and the reason I say that is because that part of the reason I'm in Bali is I'm in Ubud, which I find exceptionally balancing. The food's very clean. The people that are drawn there, it's filled with holistic medicine and healers and whatnot. Um, then my strategy is that if I'm in the States for a quarter, or if I'm in Europe for a quarter, like I go to conferences, I'm going to places where like I get the brain rub that you wouldn't necessarily get if you're not in San Francisco or in New York or in London.
Right.
And so that to me is the balance between the two, is that like you can spend time in. I gave a talk in Bali about the hidden downsides of being a digital nomad, and one of them was is that you don't get the brain rub, right? Is that you
Right.
don't get the and you also don't get in-person mentorship. So when you ask about if the travel schedule is beneficial as an entrepreneur, it's that it helps me balance myself, which then allows me to potentially be a better entrepreneur. I hope
No,
that's the goal, at
good.
least.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's part of it that a lot of people don't talk about. So I've experienced similar things being here in Buenos Aires. Not to say that the startup scene isn't booming here. It is. It's just a very different scene from the one that I'm involved in the U.S. So there's something to be said about, like you
Hmm.
said, going to conferences and meeting people. That it does
Hmm.
make a big difference. So you have to be intentional about making sure that you use the time that you have wisely. What would you
Hmm.
say are your three keys to success?
Um, Write everything down. That's one. Sharpest. Another tombstone inscription would be faintest ink is better than the sharpest memory. I
Hmm.
think it's how it goes. The Chinese proverb. Make war with a multitude of counsel. That's one of them. And I don't mean to be cliche about all this, but like these are I have them written down in front of me. So, and then take care of your body. It's the only place you got to live.
Hmm.
So.
For sure. Did you learn these mantras, these principles? Did you feel like you learned these the hard way, or was
Yeah.
this okay?
I mean, I learned them the hard way, but also I'm an aspiring polymath, and a polymath is somebody who's like deep in multiple topics,
Okay.
right? And so
Okay.
I read a lot. I listen, I take in a ton of information, and then for me, the only way to be able to actually make it useful or worthwhile is I have to write it down. So I
Okay.
take like a ton and ton of notes, and I mean, as far as travel goes, I don't have a lot I don't have a lot of possessions, but I have everything's in Apple Notes, and so I can reference it just about anywhere I am on the planet because it's saved locally on the phone, even if you're not on the internet. And then with my Kindle, I probably have seven or 800 books on there, and it's like carrying your library with you, right? And you have your
Right.
notes, and it's accessible. So I think some of this stuff. I don't know. I mean, that's to me like you can really leverage a lot of. And I do weird stuff as far as habits go. I listen to podcasts twice, so I listen to once, and then I'll go back and listen to it again, take notes a second time. But I listen to history podcasts and stuff that's not really like entrepreneur
Mm-hmm.
focused because I tend
Mm-hmm.
to find um, I tend to find like the habits are consistent no matter whether you're an artist, whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're a dancer. Like there's recipes to success, you know?
There are, and I like that you step outside of your area because I think sometimes if you stay too close within it, all your ideas are the same as everybody else's, and you start to sound like everybody else, and you lose a sense of voice. So it is nice to step outside and get inspiration from other areas and to expand your thinking and the your philosophy about
Yeah.
particular topics. So yeah, totally agree with you there. All right, well I don't feel so bad. Sometimes I struggle with my Kindle. I'm like all my books are on there, but I've got a ways to go to catch up with you for sure.
No, I mean, the number of books is not an indicator, but the Kindle is awesome.
Yes, it is.
Awesome device.
It
Yeah.
sure is. It sure is. Where can people find you?
I don't know, I'm on Twitter, Brian David Crane. Our company's on Twitter, Caller Smarts. And my email address is brian@callarsmart.com.
Got it. And we'll
And my,
have.
my personal website is Brian David Crane. Small story about why that is that people misspelled my name all the time in the South. They put the A before the I and it became Brain Crane
Oh,
all the time.
okay. What kind of wow? What kind of
Yeah.
stuff will we find on your personal website?
It's just a one-page lander with a
Okay.
picture of me. It's not the keys to, like my mom's. I don't know what. I don't know. Can't come up with.
It's not your
It's not anything super. Yeah.
philosophy. It's not your philosophy and more tombstone quotes and things like
No,
that.
no.
Oh, that would be great. That would be fascinating to see for sure. Well, Brian,
I
this
have
is
I have people I look up to, but like that's not my website.
that's
Yeah.
not your thing. Okay. Well, this has been super cool. I feel like I could talk to you for hours, but we can't do that. So, before I do let you go, I do want to ask you one other question just to dig inside your mind a little bit more. And that's to deliver a line from a movie that speaks to you and explain why you chose that one.
Have you seen the movie Tombstone?
No.
Oh, okay. Well,
Maybe
uh,
years ago. It's an old movie, right? Older,
yeah,
like
maybe
90s,
10,
maybe.
15 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. He has a line in there where he says, "I'm your Huckleberry. I'm your Huckleberry." It's what Doc Holliday says to Wyatt Earp. I don't know why. I read your question before we started this interview. I knew it was coming. I was like, "I'm your Huckleberry." I don't know. I'll go with that one. Which it just means to me, in the scene, it was something where they're in this they're in this gunfight, and he's got his back basically.
Uh-huh.
So he's like,
Sweet.
Huckleberry.
All
Yeah.
right, but I think that's good. I think that's good. And if we want to try and
I don't think it's a
relate,
very good answer, but
it is. I like it. I like it. But you know what? I think everybody needs a huckleberry. Like everybody needs somebody, and especially in business, but everybody needs someone who they feel like has their back.
yeah,
Who, they're gonna be with them through thick or thin no matter what. So I like it.
hard to find.
Yeah, yeah. So it's even better whenever they tell you they're your huckleberry. So super cool. Well, Brian, this has been super, super fun. Thank you so much for stopping by and sharing your experiences with us. It's been great.
Thanks for having me on, Sonia. Talk to you later.